You wake up and within 60 seconds, you're already wearing someone else's life. The alarm goes off and you reach for a phone you didn't design, to check apps you didn't choose, to feel anxious about things you don't actually care about. You get dressed in clothes selected to impress people you don't even like. You commute to a job that exists because someone told you stability matters more than sanity. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, between the coffee and the meeting and the small talk, a quiet voice tries to speak. But you drown it out. You've gotten very good at drowning it out. The costly mistake most people make is this. They think they chose their life. They didn't inherit it, they chose it. But here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Almost nothing about your daily life was chosen by you. It was chosen for you, by people who had it chosen for them, by people who had it chosen for them, going back so many generations that the original choice has been completely forgotten. And you call this living. The Stoics would call it sleepwalking. Here's the idea I want you to hold on to for the next 20 minutes. Your nature isn't something you choose. It's something you uncover, and then have the courage to obey. Say it again in your mind. Your nature isn't something you choose. It's something you uncover, and then have the courage to obey. Everything else in this video is just evidence for that one claim. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt genuinely, completely yourself? Not performing, not optimizing, not trying to be someone's version of smart, or successful, or attractive, or good. Just yourself. Quietly, unapologetically, yourself. If you're like most people, you have to think hard. Maybe you remember a moment from childhood, before the world got hold of you. Maybe you remember a time you were alone, truly alone, with no one to perform for. Or maybe you can't remember at all. And that should terrify you more than it does. Because here's what nobody tells you. The self you think you are is mostly a patchwork. It's a collage of other people's expectations, glued together with fear. Your parents gave you a template. Your culture gave you a template. Your school, your peers, your first boss, your first partner, the algorithm that feeds you content every morning. All of them gave you templates. And layer by layer, those templates overwrote your natural inclinations until you couldn't tell the difference between your voice and the crowd's. You think you want the promotion, do you? Or do you want what the promotion represents in the story everyone told you about what a good life looks like? You think you want the house, the relationship, the body, the recognition. But if you sit with any of those desires long enough, really sit with them in silence, you start to notice something uncomfortable. Many of them don't belong to you. They were installed, like software you never consented to download. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than almost anyone. Here was a man with absolute power, emperor of Rome, who could have lived any life he wanted. And yet, in his private journal, the one he never intended anyone to read, he kept returning to one question. Am I living according to my nature, or according to the noise? He didn't use those exact words, but that's the essence. He reminded himself, over and over, that the universe has a rational order, and that human beings share in that rational order. To live well is to live in accordance with reason and with your own nature. Not convention, not appetite, not what the crowd says is impressive. Your nature, the thing you were built for before the world got its hands on you. And here's where it gets difficult. Because the Stoics didn't mean something vague and mystical by living according to nature. They meant something very specific. Your nature is rational and social. You were built to think clearly and to contribute to the common good. That's it. That's the core. Everything else, the wealth, the fame, the status, the comfort, the recognition, all of it, the Stoics called indifference. Not bad, not good, just indifferent. Neither here nor there. And this is the reframing that changes everything if you let it. The only true good is moral excellence. Wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. The only true evil is vice, which is the abandonment of your own rational nature. Everything else is weather. It comes and goes. It cannot touch who you actually are. Now, most people hear that and they nod. They think they understand. But they don't live it. They say virtue matters more than wealth, And then they spend 40 hours a week chasing wealth and 0 hours a week examining what virtue even means for them specifically. They say they value authenticity, and then they shape every word and gesture to match what the room expects. They say they want to live according to nature, and then they live according to fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being left behind, fear of being seen as strange, fear of disappointing people whose approval they never needed in the first place. And what does it cost you? This is the question I want you to sit with. What does it cost you, every single day, to live someone else's idea of a good life? It costs you your energy. It costs you your attention. It costs you the quiet satisfaction that comes from doing something that actually matters to you, not because it looks good, but because it is good for you, in your bones. It costs you your time, which is the one thing you can never get back. And most of all, it costs you yourself. You still don't feel whole. You still don't feel like you. You achieve something, and the satisfaction lasts 48 hours before the next hunger kicks in. You acquire something, and within a week, it's just furniture. You impress someone, and the moment they walk away, the performance anxiety starts again. Does that sound like a life lived according to nature? Or does that sound like a life lived according to a script someone else wrote? Here's what nobody tells you about discovering your nature. It's not a revelation. It's not a lightning bolt. It's not a weekend retreat where you cry and journal and come back transformed. It's a slow, deliberate process of subtraction. You don't find yourself by adding more. You find yourself by removing everything that isn't you. Think of it like sculpting. The sculptor doesn't build the statue. The sculptor removes the stone that isn't the statue. The figure was always in the marble. It was just buried. Your nature is in there too, buried under years of adaptation, compromise, and performance. The work is not to become someone new. The work is to stop being someone you're not. So how do you actually do this? Let me give you something concrete. Tonight, after the noise dies down, after the screens go dark and the house is quiet, sit alone for 15 minutes. No phone, no music, no journal. Just sit. And in that silence, ask yourself one question. Not what do I want? That question is too polluted. Too many people have answered it for you. Instead, ask this. What would I still do if no one ever found out? What would I still care about if there was no audience, no applause, no recognition of any kind? The answer that survives that question is close to your nature. The answers that collapse under that question are the inherited templates. They need an audience. They need validation. They are not yours. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this constantly. He said, "Do good because it is the right thing to do, not because anyone will notice or praise you." True virtue is its own reward and needs no audience. Think about how radical that is. The most powerful man in the world telling himself that the only thing worth pursuing is something that doesn't need witnesses. He wasn't performing virtue for a crowd. He was practicing it in private, for its own sake, because that's what his nature demanded. Now ask yourself honestly, how much of what you do in a given day would you still do if no one was watching? If there was no one to impress, no one to report to, no one to validate you, how much of your life would survive? For most people, the answer is brutal. Almost none of it. And that's the problem. That's the gap between the life you're living and the life your nature is asking you to live. Here's the next layer. Your nature is not just what you want. It's what you're built for. And those are different things. The Stoics understood that human nature is rational and social. We are built to think clearly and to contribute to something beyond ourselves. We are built for cooperation, like the parts of a single body. To oppose others is to oppose nature itself. But here's the subtlety. How you contribute, the specific form your contribution takes, that's deeply individual. You are not meant to contribute in the same way as your neighbor, or your parent, or your culture's default setting. You have a shape, a natural tendency, a way of being in the world that feels like effortlessness from the inside, even if it looks like work from the outside. And the tragedy is that most people never find that shape because they're too busy molding themselves into a shape someone else designed. Think about it like this. A tree doesn't decide to be a tree. It just grows toward the light. But if you put a tree in a box, it will grow into the shape of the box. It will still be a tree, but it will be stunted, contorted, unnatural. And if you take it out of the box years later, it won't immediately spring into its natural shape. It will carry the marks of the box for the rest of its life. That's what happened to you. You were put in a box. The box of family expectations. The box of cultural norms. The box of what success is supposed to look like. And you grew into it. You contorted yourself. And now you mistake the shape of the box for your own shape. So the first practice is recognition. You have to see the box before you can grow out of it. This means examining your desires, one by one, and asking, is this mine? Did I choose this, or was it chosen for me? Take your career. Did you choose it because it matched your natural tendencies, or because someone told you it was practical, or prestigious, or secure? Take your relationships. Are you in them because they bring out something genuine in you, or because they match a template of what a relationship is supposed to look like? Take your daily habits, your routines, your hobbies, the way you spend your evenings. How much of it was chosen, and how much was inherited? This examination is not comfortable. It will shake things. But discomfort is the price of authenticity. And authenticity is the only path to peace. The second practice is experimentation. Once you start seeing the box, you have to test what's outside of it. This doesn't mean blowing up your life tomorrow. It means small acts of disobedience against the template. If you've always been the person who says yes to everything, try saying no. See what happens. If you've always pursued the path that looked best on paper, try pursuing something that feels best in your gut, even if it looks like nothing on paper. If you've always shaped your opinions to match the room, try saying what you actually think. Just once. Just to yourself first. And then, when you're ready, out loud. These small acts of disobedience are not rebellion for its own sake. They are experiments in nature. You are testing what grows when the box is removed. And some of what grows will surprise you. You'll discover inclinations you buried so long ago you forgot they existed. You'll discover that things you thought you wanted were just habits of wanting. And you'll discover that things you never let yourself want are actually what you've been hungry for all along. The third practice is alignment. Once you start to see your nature, you build your daily life around it. Not around inherited templates. Not around what looks good. Around what is genuinely yours. This is where discipline enters the picture. Because living according to your nature is not the easy path. It's the hard path. It's much easier to follow the template. The template comes with instructions. It comes with social approval. It comes with a clear metrics of success. Your nature comes with none of that. It comes with a quiet certainty that this is right for you, and nothing else. And that certainty has to be enough. That's the discipline. Trusting your own quiet certainty when the whole world is screaming at you to follow the template. Marcus Aurelius lived this. He was an emperor. He could have lived in luxury, indulged every appetite, chased every pleasure. Instead, he spent his reign wrestling with duty, loss, betrayal, and the daily challenge of being a good person in a position that invited him to be anything but. He didn't choose the easy path. He chose the path that his nature, his reason, and his sense of justice demanded. And he did it without an audience. His journal was private. No one was watching. No one was applauding. He was simply doing what he was built to do, in the way he was built to do it. Now, here's the tension that most people feel when they hear all of this. They feel the pull of their nature, and they also feel the weight of obligation. They have responsibilities, bills, people who depend on them. They can't just walk away from everything and go find themselves. And the Stoics never asked anyone to do that. That's a misunderstanding. Living according to your nature doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. It means fulfilling them in a way that's aligned with who you actually are. It means bringing your real self to your real life, instead of bringing a performance. It means doing the work that's in front of you, but doing it as you, not as the person everyone expects you to be. Marcus didn't abandon the throne to go find himself. He found himself while sitting on the throne. He found his nature in the middle of his obligations, and he honored both. But here's the thing that makes this so difficult. Most people don't know the difference between their voice and the crowd's. The override is so complete, so thorough, that they've lost the ability to distinguish between genuine inclination and conditioned response. They feel a desire and assume it's theirs. They feel an aversion and assume it's authentic. But if they traced it back, they'd find that many of their desires were planted there by someone else, and many of their aversions are just fears they inherited. So the work begins with listening, not to the noise, to the silence underneath the noise. That's where your nature speaks. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It just quietly points. And you have to be quiet enough to hear it. This is why silence is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Without silence, you will never hear your own nature over the roar of everyone else's expectations. Seneca understood this. He lived in a world that was just as noisy as ours, maybe noisier. And he insisted that the person who can't be alone with themselves is in the most danger. Not because solitude is inherently virtuous, but because without it, you will never distinguish between what you want and what you've been told to want. Silence is the scalpel that separates your nature from your conditioning. And most people are terrified of it. They fill every moment with input. Music, podcasts, scrolling, conversation, work, entertainment. Not because they love all of it, but because they're afraid of what they'd hear in the silence. They're afraid that in the silence, they discover that the life they've built doesn't match the person they actually are. But here's the paradox. That discovery, as painful as it is the beginning of freedom. Because once you see the gap, you can close it. And closing the gap, aligning your life with your nature, that's where peace lives. Not the peace of comfort, the peace of integrity. The peace that comes from being one person, not two. Not the person you are in public and the person you are in private. One person, integrated, whole. Carl Jung called this individuation. The process of becoming who you uniquely are, rather than who the collective expects you to be. He saw that most people live their whole lives as a version of someone else's idea, and they die without ever having encountered their own nature. He saw that the unlived life, the life that your nature asked for but you never gave it, doesn't just disappear. It festers. It shows up as anxiety, as depression, as a vague but persistent sense that something is wrong, even when everything looks right from the outside. That sense, that low-grade hum of wrongness, that's your nature knocking. It's not trying to punish you. It's trying to reach you. It's saying, I'm still here. I'm still who you are. Stop ignoring me. And here's what nobody tells you about that knocking. It gets quieter if you ignore it long enough. Not because your nature goes away. It doesn't. But because you go numb. You build a thicker and thicker wall between yourself, and eventually you can't hear it anymore. And you might think that's peace. It's not. It's anesthesia. And anesthesia is not the same as healing. Healing happens when you remove the anesthesia, feel the pain of the disconnection, and then do the work of reconnecting. That's the hard path. That's the path of discipline. Not the discipline of forcing yourself into a mold. The discipline of peeling away everything that isn't you, layer by layer, until what remains is your nature, bare and unashamed. Let me give you another concrete practice. Take a piece of paper and write down the 5 things you spend the most time on in a given week. Not what you think you spend time on. What you actually spend time on. Be honest. Then, next to each one, write whether it moves you closer to your nature or further from it. Not whether it's productive. Not whether it's impressive. Whether it's aligned with who you actually are. If you're honest, you'll find that a significant portion of your time is spent on things that are neither here nor there. They're not moving you toward your nature. They're not moving you away from it. They're just consuming the hours of your life like a slow fire. And those are the most dangerous things. Because the things that actively pull you away from your nature, you can at least see them. You can name them. You can choose to stop. But the things that are neutral, the things that just fill time, those are the ones that steal your life without you even noticing. They're the background noise that drowns out the signal. The Stoics had a word for this kind of awareness. Persoc, attention, not the scattered, fragmented attention of modern life. A deliberate, sustained attention to yourself and to your life. Attention to whether your actions align with your nature. Attention to whether your desires are yours or someone else's. Attention to whether you're living or performing. This attention is not passive. It's active. It's a daily practice, a discipline, and it's the foundation of everything else. Without it, you drift. With it, you navigate. Now, I want to address something that might be nagging at you. You might be thinking, what if my nature is wrong? What if what I'm built for is something small or strange or something that doesn't fit into the world's categories of success? Here's the Stoic answer. Your nature cannot be wrong. It can only be ignored. The universe built you a certain way. Your nature is rational and social. Yes, but the specific expression of that, the way you think, the way you contribute, the way you engage with the world, that's yours. And it's not wrong. It's not lesser. It's not inadequate. It just is. The only mistake you can make is to override it with someone else's template and then wonder why you feel empty. Think about it this way. If you took a fish and put it in a tree and told it to climb, the fish would fail. And the fish would feel like a failure. And the fish would spend its whole life believing something was wrong with it. But nothing was wrong with the fish. Something was wrong with the environment. Something was wrong with the expectation. The fish wasn't broken. It was just in the wrong place. Most people are fish in trees. They're living in an environment, following a template that doesn't match their nature. And they feel broken. And they think the solution is to try harder, to push more, to force themselves up the tree. But the solution isn't to try harder. The solution is to find water. Now, finding your water doesn't always mean a dramatic change. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you need to walk away from a career, a relationship, a whole identity that was never yours. But more often, it means small recalibrations. It means bringing more of your real self into the life you already have. It means stop hiding your natural tendencies and start honoring them. It means if you're someone who thinks deeply, stop pretending to be someone who schemes the surface. If you're someone who feels intensely, stop apologizing for your depth. If you're someone who works best in solitude, stop forcing yourself into constant collaboration. If you're someone who thrives in chaos, stop trying to be the person who needs calm. Your nature is not a problem to solve. It's a terrain to navigate. And the better you know it, the better you navigate. Here's something else the Stoics understood that most people miss. Living according to your nature doesn't mean living for yourself. It means living from yourself. There's a difference. Living for yourself is selfishness. It's the pursuit of your own comfort at the expense of others. That's not what the Stoics taught. They taught that your nature is social. You are built to contribute. You are built to cooperate. You are built to work for the common good. But the way you contribute has to come from who you actually are, not from a role you're performing, not from guilt, not from obligation, from your nature. Marcus Aurelius said that every action should serve both reason and the welfare of others. Self-interest disconnected from the common good is a violation of your nature. But here's the key. Serving the common good doesn't mean erasing yourself. It means bringing your full, authentic self into service. The best contribution you can make to the world is not the contribution someone else designed for you. It's the contribution that flows naturally from who you are. And this is where most people get stuck. They think they have to choose between being themselves and being useful, between authenticity and responsibility, between their nature and their obligations. But it's a false choice. The Stoic path is the integration of both. You serve the common good by being fully yourself. You fulfill your obligations by bringing your whole nature to them, not a hollowed-out version. The more aligned you are with your nature, the more genuinely useful you become. Because a person living in alignment has energy, has clarity, has presence. A person living out of alignment is exhausted, scattered, and half-present. Which one do you think serves the world better? Let me bring this back to something practical. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, before you reach for the phone, before the templates activate, lie still for 60 seconds. Just 60 seconds. And ask yourself, what does today look like if I live it according to my nature? Not according to what looks good, not according to what's expected, according to what I'm genuinely built for. You don't have to act on the answer right away. You just have to hear it. 60 seconds of silence before the noise begins. That's where it starts. That's the first crack in the box. And over time, those 60 seconds will expand. They'll become 5 minutes, then 10, then a way of being. Not a practice you do at a specific time, but a lens through which you see everything. Every choice, every relationship, every ambition, filtered through one question. Is this mine? Did I choose this? Does this align with what I'm built for? And when the answer is no, you don't panic. You don't blow up your life. You just notice. You file it away. And slowly, deliberately, you begin to adjust. You redirect your energy toward what's yours and away from what isn't. Not all at once. Gradually, the way a river finds its course. It doesn't force its way through the landscape. It follows the natural contours. It goes where the land invites it. Your nature is the same. It doesn't need to be forced. It needs to be followed. But following it requires courage. Because the world will not always approve. The world loves templates. The world loves predictability. The world loves people who fit neatly into categories. And when you start living according to your nature, you will sometimes make people uncomfortable. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something unpredictable. You're stepping off the path they expected you to walk. And that makes them question their own path. And most people don't want to question their own path. It's easier to question yours. Let them. This is where the Stoic practice of detachment becomes essential. You cannot live according to your nature if you are attached to everyone's approval. The two are incompatible. You will have to choose. And the Stoics were clear about which to choose. Do what is right, regardless of recognition. True virtue needs no audience. Your nature needs no audience. It just needs you. It needs you to listen, to obey, to build your life around it, brick by brick, day by day, until the structure of your life matches the foundation of who you are. And here's the thing about that structure. It won't look like anyone else's. It won't match the templates. It won't fit neatly into a category. And that's not a flaw. That's the point. Because the whole problem was that you were trying to fit into a category that was never designed for you. Your life, lived according to your nature, will be strange by conventional standards. It will be idiosyncratic. It will make sense to you and puzzle everyone else. And that's how you'll know you're on the right track. Not because it's easy, not because it's comfortable, but because it's yours. In a world of copies, the only rebellion that matters is becoming the original you were already meant to be. Let me bring this back to where we started. Your nature isn't something you choose. It's something you uncover, and then have the courage to obey. Everything we've talked about, the examination of desire, the practice of silence, the small acts of disobedience against the template, the alignment of daily life with what's genuinely yours, all of it serves that one idea. You were not born to live someone else's life. You were born to discover what you already are and to have the courage to build your life around it. Marcus Aurelius sat on the most powerful throne in the world and still had to remind himself, every day, to live according to his nature and not according to the noise. If an emperor needed that reminder, so do you. The noise will always be there. The templates will always be there. The expectations will always be there. But so will your nature. Quiet, patient, waiting for you to listen. So listen, not to me, not to the crowd, not to the algorithm, to the thing underneath all of it. The thing that has been speaking since before you had language for it. The thing that knows what you're built for, even when you've forgotten. That thing is your nature. And it is the only compass that will never lie to you. The only question is whether you have the courage to follow it. Most people won't. They'll hear this and feel something stir, and then they'll go back to the template. Because the template is safe. The template is familiar. The template comes with a community of people who are also living the template, and there's comfort in that shared delusion. But comfort is not peace. Comfort is a painkiller. Peace is what you find on the other side of the hard choice. The choice to stop performing. The choice to stop inheriting. The choice to build a life that fits you, not one that fits the world's idea of you. You have one life. 1. And you are spending it, right now, according to someone else's blueprint. Not because you chose to, but because you never stopped to ask whether the blueprint was yours. Now you're asking. And that question, once it's asked honestly, cannot be unasked. It will follow you into the silence, into the mirror, into every moment where you feel the gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be. That gap is not a problem. It's a map. It points toward your nature. Follow it. Stay true to your nature.